From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Students having a shocking good time this summer.
The science and fun of energy and electricity. 4-H Electric Camp here on the University of Tennessee Agriculture campus. That story next on AgDay.
The east coast of the country getting hit for a second time by what remains of Hurricane Debbie.
North Carolinians should take this storm seriously.
A look at the parts of the ag industry that remain in her path as the EPA puts the biofuels industry under the microscope.
It is important to ensuring that we can demonstrate the carbon reductions that are associated with our fuels.
The latest on what they're looking for right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these feeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A developing story we're following. Word that the EPA is investigating at least 2 renewable fuels producers. Reuters reporting the agency is looking into the supply chains of the companies out of concerns they may be using fraudulent feedstocks for biodiesel. It comes following a surge in used cooking oil exports from Asia. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been looking into this. And Michelle, the EPA is not naming the companies right now.
Yeah, and we may not find out which companies are being investigated or who are illegally using separated food waste, as EPA says they can't discuss ongoing enforcement action. However, these audits have been ongoing since last summer in response to a 2020 lawsuit by U.S. biofuels groups, and so this doesn't come as a surprise to them. Biofuels groups suspected fraudulent use of separated food waste for biofuels production, and that's why they initiated the lawsuit back in 2020. They asked EPA to provide traceability of the feedstocks used for biodiesel and renewable diesel production for producers earning credits under the Renewable Fuels Standard. That included used cooking oil.
These are rules that EPA proposed in 2020 and that we negotiated with the EPA to finalize in 2022. So we were on notice as soon as those regulations were finalized that EPA would begin auditing.
The production of biodiesel from used cooking oil can earn refiners state and federal tax subsidies under the RFS. The fear with some of these supplies and imports were virgin palm oil, which is cheaper and less sustainable. Based on the outcome of similar investigations in Europe, Winters says they aren't surprised with the early audit findings.
Most of the fraud has centered on changes to paperwork. Companies or countries exporting feedstocks or raw materials to another country and then marking that country as the point of origin and shipping it to the United States.
Winters says the audits are ongoing and important to keep the industry in public favor.
It is important to ensuring that we can demonstrate the carbon reductions that are associated with our fuels.
EPA officials say they can't discuss ongoing enforcement action, but the hope is this will eventually lead to changes in the 45Z tax credit guidance for SAF, so imported feedstocks will not qualify for credits. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Happening right now, the East Coast is getting hit as Debbie makes a second landfall. The storm strengthening again offshore overnight while continuing its devastating rainfall, flooding, and tornado threats. Brian Abel has an update.
North Carolinians should take this storm seriously and make sure you're ready.
The Carolinas are in the crosshairs right now. Debbie is churning at around 5 miles per hour just offshore, getting stronger in warm Atlantic waters. Its wide reach, dumping rain, and deepening floodwaters along North and South Carolina coast, threatening a storm surge up to 3 feet above normal high tide.
Please listen to local officials and follow evacuation orders if they are issued.
Officials want residents out of the way when Debbie makes its second projected landfall between Myrtle Beach and Charleston sometime before Thursday morning.
The wind was howling. I was pretty scared, honestly.
You heard that little rumble, then all the transformers started popping, trees started going down.
Many tourists and locals along South Carolina's coast know what's coming. They rode out Debbie's high winds and at least one confirmed tornado Tuesday.
Yeah, you can see it
coming right through our yard, almost through these two houses right here.
Storms spawned by Debbie are already lashing parts of the Northeast.
It's like a whoosh, and everything just completely was gone off the garage.
Everything was all over the place. It was kind of chaos for a minute.
Forecasters say several dozen river gauges from Florida through the Carolinas could soon exceed moderate or major flood levels and possibly stay that way into next week, delaying much needed recovery efforts. In Charleston, I'm Brian Abel reporting for AgDay.
So what has been the impact on ag from Hurricane Debbie so far? Well, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says the storm carved a path between major ag regions in Florida and Georgia.
So, for example, we saw very limited impacts in Florida's citrus areas, Florida's sugarcane, and we also bypassed a lot of Georgia's major southwestern production areas for crops like peanuts and cotton.
However, as the storm intensifies again and hits South Carolina, the threats to agriculture include flooding that could impact major row crops in the Carolinas and Virginia, along with North Carolina hog and pig farms. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht has the latest on Debbie's trek and its impact on the East Coast.
Yeah, one thing that we've been doing the last couple of days isn't necessarily focusing on the track of this tropical system, but rather the impacts that are going to come from it. In fact, just looking at the flooding potential for our Thursday, you can guide and kind of get a sense of where this system is going to track over the next couple of days. And the interesting thing about this is we're expecting it not to kind of graze the coast and work off towards the east and deeper in the Atlantic, rather come inland into parts of Raleigh, Durham, back up here towards the north, and then the northeast. Again, this is just Thursday. There is a chance of some flooding potential, 15 to 40, back over here towards Colorado as well. That has to do with our next cold front, our next trough. That trough is going to kick this system out into the Atlantic, but it is going to take some time for it to get there. As we go into Friday, and we got more forward motion with this tropical system, lingering impacts from some rain, 15 to 40% chance of some flooding potential through North Carolina, Virginia, and then we get back up into the red, which is 40 to 70 as this system works to the north and to the northeast. Again, that's coming up on Friday. And yes, more corn harvest is underway in the South. Lindsay sending this one in from Texas, sharing the video. Quote, "We found dry corn. Let's go." Have a great harvest this season, Lindsay. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Now, heat is a concern in the West as California farmers begin harvesting tomatoes across the Central Valley. Andy Stein capturing some of the harvest. Ag Alert reporting the heat waves are impacting pollination for some plantings and harvest for others. And that had California processing tomato growers saying they were anticipating average yields at best. Tomato processors contracted 40,000 fewer acres from farmers this year. It's due to increased inventory from last year's bumper crop. Less drama midweek from commodity markets as traders search for direction. We'll discuss that coming up next in Markets Now. And later, we're off to camp in Tennessee where these 4-H'ers are learning skills for their future in the country.
Earn revenue through the Bear Carbon Program. Simple, flexible, certain. Learn more at bearforeground.com/carbon.
More quarterly earnings reports are coming in from ag companies. The latest Bayer, which posted a more than 16% drop in quarterly adjusted earnings. The company saying its April to June earnings fell to $2.3 billion. It reports revenue from the crop science division rose 1.1% due to higher sales from glyphosate-based herbicides. But it says it recorded substantial sales declines for its non-glyphosate-based herbicides and fungicides business in a soft market environment. Bayer now says it expects the seed and crop protection market to see further pressure and decline by 1% this year. Some strength in the soy oil market helped cut the losses midweek for soybean markets. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with more insight in Markets Now.
Grains out lower on Wednesday. Matt Bennett with agmarket.net is back with analysis. Well, corn and soybeans both lower, and we barely held recent lows. Is this all about yield? Is the market thinking that we're building in bigger yield? And if so, how much?
Tuesday, Wednesday's trade, just pretty lethargic, lackluster type trade. Can't find any buyers to show up. The sideways to lower, in my opinion, has to have, you got to ask yourself, what's going to drive the market higher? Whenever right now the trade kind of feels like these crops are growing. So, you got to report out Monday, but I just don't think anybody wants to do a whole lot of anything other than maybe sell a little bit ahead of that.
And if yield is going up, the other question is it going to be offset by acres in the report or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's altogether possible. I think that the one bullish thing that people are looking for, which, is acreage, due to the USDA coming out and saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and update this maybe a month earlier this year and incorporate it into our data. You got to ask yourself, though, what might yield look like? I mean, typically the USDA addresses yield every August, a little bit of a change from July. I cannot imagine that they would actually see the yield lower from the July estimate. So, where's it come in at? I mean, that's the big question. I mean, our estimate is that we could come up a couple bushel. I've seen August estimate before be a pretty wild number, if you will, and then turn around and maybe have some adjustments later on. But I do expect that this yield will go up. You look at the drought monitor, you look at condition ratings, it's pretty tough to assume otherwise.
And so there's some more downside risk on price then, if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I believe there is. Of course, a lot of us have looked at an analog year like a 2014 versus 2024. And, what did we do in 2014? Because we've mirrored 2014 quite a bit over the last few months. Went all the way down to 318. I mean, I don't think that we're going to see that happen. I'll say that. But could we make a run at well below $4 levels, somewhere closer to $3.50 than $4? I think it's possible, especially if this crop is as big as what some people are forecasting.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Matt Bennett with Ag Market. Now we'll have more Ag Day coming up.
I'll take this day by day regarding Debbie and that next trough that is going to try to move all that moisture out. So you got Debbie down here, North and South Carolina, also some flooding potential back into Virginia as early as Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon. Look up here to the top part of the screen. That's our next trough, the circles that you're seeing back up into Canada near the United States. When I put this into motion, so long as that trough is back out here towards the west, this system is just going to sit down here on the southeast, bringing a feet of rainfall to those locations. So again, this is Thursday at 10 p.m. That trough's going to try to cut through. The other thing that could happen with this system, as it's absorbed, as Debbie is absorbed into this trough, you may get a spreading of the rainfall all across the northeast. And the main concern in that kind of situation is obviously going to be localized flooding through a large area, or at least the potential for localized flooding over a much greater area into the northeast. So again, this is Friday at 10 p.m. Still some lingering showers, heavy downpours back to the southeast, and then finally starting to exit as this trough picks up Debbie and that tropical moisture and moves it off into the Atlantic. Now on the other side of this, as this trough moves through, we're actually going to get another ridge trying to build in behind it, which is going to send those temperatures back up across the United States next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday. So the jet stream looks something like this. And again, those two pieces that we've been following all week long are present. You got this big U right here, which is the upper level pattern showing where Debbie is located. Again, in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Here's our trough. This is going to cut through, still seeing the influences of Debbie, and then by Thursday night and into Friday, it's going to pick up and work off to the north and to the northeast. But this situation right here, we got a soft U there and the big circle here. What's going to end up happening is we're going to spread out a lot of that moisture at the surface, increasing the localized flooding potential over a large area in the northeast. We'll start off in Nebraska, high around 72 degrees, low of 52 with some morning showers. You got Louisiana, sunny, high of 97, a low of 71 in Bunkie. And finally, Hull, Wisconsin, AM showers, high around 73 degrees.
As the school year fires back up, student ag organizations like FFA will be back in session, and new numbers from the national office show FFA has set a record-breaking milestone. It now has more than 1 million members, up nearly 9% from a year ago. Now, the largest increase is coming in states like Utah, where membership grew by 172%, also in Florida and Alaska. Is the nation's cattle herd being rebuilt? Well, new numbers show that may not be true just yet. We'll have details next And later, these 4-H campers are lighting up about lessons on electricity. We'll see their shocking experiences in the country. How much smaller is the U.S. beef herd right now? Coming into this year, it was reported to be at a 63-year low, the smallest beef cow inventory since 1961. Now, that's according to Darrell Peel of Oklahoma State University, and he says so far there are no indications that any beef herd rebuilding is underway.
We're still getting smaller, actually, as an industry. We started this year with the lowest cattle numbers in decades. The indications are that the herd has gotten smaller this year. We're looking for signs of, there's two things that'll happen when we start herd rebuilding. One will be heifer retention. That's the big one that we're looking for. The other one is that cow culling will reduce to minimal levels as producers try to hang on to cows a little bit longer than usual. Cow slaughter is down about 16% this year, but if you look at it in the context of the broader set of numbers, that's probably not enough to indicate that we are actually in the process of herd rebuilding. That's still going to give us a culling rate of 10 to 11%.
Now, Peel says beef cow slaughter would have to drop by roughly 22% year over year to avoid additional liquidation this year. And he says the current rate of beef cow slaughter indicates a herd culling rate in excess of 10% this year. Something for producers to watch out for in Oklahoma, officials confirming the first case of Asian longhorn ticks in the state. The Oklahoma Department of Agriculture reporting the tick was detected in Mayes County, that's in the northeastern part of the state. The agency launching an investigation to try and figure out how the ticks arrived and how widespread the problem may be. Now, the ticks, which originated in East Asia, feed on many hosts. Large numbers of them can infest a single host, impacting growth, performance, and milk production in cattle. In extreme cases, an infestation can cause cow deaths due to blood loss. Oklahoma is now the 20th state to confirm Asian longhorn ticks. Well, summer is winding down, and so is camp season. But before they do, we'll stop by Electricity Camp in Tennessee, where 4-Hers are enjoying a shockingly good time. Now, some students in Tennessee recently experienced an adventure that was downright electrifying. As Charles Denny of the University of Tennessee tells us, the kids attended 4-H Electric Camp.
A high-voltage hot dog, not microwave for lunch, but a warning about what power lines can do to human flesh. Just one of the eye-popping lessons in 4-H Electric Camp, with a crew from the Knoxville Utilities Board on hand to show the strength of our energy source. Some 200 campers are here from across Tennessee. Curious kids like Zariah Reed from Jackson, part of a group working with rolling robots. For her, electric camp teaches important lessons.
Like learning things that keep me safe and that'll help me in the future and everything.
Electric Camp is now in its 33rd year here on the UT Ag campus. In that time, more than 10,000 kids have gone through this program. Now it's part of a modern-day emphasis for 4-H, STEM education.
Here, campers piece together extension cords. And in another room, they construct a community and its power source, a place called Volt City. Mike Buschermole is Professor Emeritus with UTIA Biosystems Engineering and still gives his time to coordinate Electric Camp. He's been with the project since its beginning.
I think that's really why we started, the Electric Camp. STEM education is very important today. That's where most of the jobs are. When we started, STEM was not a word and not an acronym.
Valued partners in the energy industry also make this camp possible. Municipal electric power associations and electric cooperatives.
It gives us a new platform to speak to students, 4-H students that are interested in volunteering in their communities. They are our future member owners, especially being with cooperatives.
Since Ben Franklin's famous kite flying incident, mankind has been working to harness and better understand electricity. In this summer camp, it's something valuable for kids to learn, science with a spark of energy. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. Sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.